Hello, all. This is Mr. Shafto. We have a quiz or a test tomorrow on operations with fractions. It's going to be on multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting fractions. This is the review sheet. It's called Fraction Review Sheet. So let's go ahead and get started and work through the problems. Problem 1 says, Chris decides to make 4 2/3 liters of iced tea. Each cup holds 2/3 of a liter. What is the maximum amount of cups that Chris can fill? So as I look at this problem, I need to think, okay, we've got a pitcher that Chris is trying to get water out of, and he's put it into these cups. And each cup is 2/3 of a liter. And so he's dividing everything he has in here into the cups. So we're going to take 4 2/3 divided by 2/3. So as I'm looking at this, I see that I have a mixed number, this fraction, because it has a whole and a fraction. It's called a mixed number. And so that mixed number, I need to convert it to an improper fraction. And an improper fraction is when you have a bigger number in the numerator on top. So we need to convert this by taking our whole times the denominator plus 2. So I'm going to take 3 times 4 plus 2. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 plus 2 is going to be equal to 14. And I keep the same denominator. It's out of 3. And the way I'm doing this is we've really got, it's 4 wholes. So it's like I have 3/3 plus 3/3 plus 3/3 plus 3/3 plus 2/3. So these are my 4 wholes. That's 4, and then plus 2/3. And so if I were to add these up, I get 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 3 is 9, plus 3 is 12. That's why I multiplied 3 times 4 is 12/3. And then I add the 2/3, and that gives me 14/3. Then I'm dividing by 2/3. There's 2 ways to divide. We can use the common denominator method. And if we have the same denominator, we can just divide this and we do 14. We just look at the numerators. 14 divided by 2, and that's equal to 7. We know that because the pieces are all the same. So it's 14 pieces that are size 3 and 2 pieces that are size 1/3. And 14 divided by 2 is 7. The other way is to use to multiply the reciprocal method. So I take 14 over 3 times 3 over 2. And since I want to simplify before I multiply, I've got a 3 in the numerator, a 3 in the denominator. So I'm going to divide by 3 to get 1, divide by 3 to get 1. So I have 14 times 1 is 14. 1 times 2 is 2. And then I can divide by 2, divide by 2, and I am equal to 7. Question 2, and this is 7 cups. So I could fill up 7 of these cups. Question 2, Mike decides to go berry picking. He collects 5 3/4 pounds of berries. Mike then wants to put the berries into smaller bags that can only hold 3/4 of a pound. How many smaller bags can Mike fill? Whoops. So again, we've got some berries and we're dividing them into these bags. So I have 5 3/4 divided into 3/4 size bags. So the first thing, again, I have this mixed number and I need to convert it to an improper fraction. So just like I did up here, I'm going to multiply. 4 times 5 gives me 20, and then I add the 3, and that's 23. This is equal to 23 over 4 divided by 3 over 4. Well, again, I have the same denominator here. So if I have the same denominator, I can just divide the numerators. So this is the common denominator method. 23 divided by 3 is equal to 23/3, which is equal to 7 2/3. The other way to do it would be to say 23/4 multiplied by 4/3, because we multiplied the reciprocal, and the reciprocal means we flip the fraction. And then I can divide by 4 to simplify here. I get 1. I divide by 4 to simplify on the bottom, and I get 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 23 times 1 is 23, and 1 times 3 is 3. And that still gives us the same reduced fraction. Let's keep going. Question 3 says the closet has an area of 12 3/4 square inches. The length of the closet is 5 1/4. What is the width? So if I've got a closet, and I've got some stuff in it, this is my closet, and the area is 12 3/4 inches squared, and the width is 5 quarter, which means that, okay, what's my length going to be? Well, we know it's length times width or base times height. So I've got this times this equals 12 3/4. Well, that's a multiplication problem. To do that backwards, I divide. So I'm going to tell 12 3/4 divided by 5 1/4. Again, I see, okay, I'm dividing. So I have to convert these from mixed numbers to improper fractions. So 4 times 12 is 48. 48 plus 3 is 51 over 4. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 plus 1 is 21 over 4, and we're dividing. We have the same denominator, so I can use the common denominator method, which means I just forget about these, and I do 51 divided by 21. I get 51 over 21, which can simplify to be equal to, it divides by 3, and I get 17. 21 divided by 3, 17 sevenths, which is 2 3/6. The other way to set this up would be to say, okay, we have 51 over 4 times the reciprocal, which I flip this. I have 21 on the bottom, and 4 on top. And since I have 4 on top and a 4 on the bottom, in the numerator and the denominator, that tells me I can cancel them. Divide by 4, I get 1. Divide by 4, I get 1. So I have 51 times 1 is 51, and 1 times 21 is 21. And this is the same thing as here, and it simplifies to the same solution. Question 4. James ran 3 2/3 miles around the soccer field. If one lap around the soccer field is 3/4 of a mile, how many laps did he run? So I've got total 3 2/3 they ran, lap, 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 and he got 3 2/3. And it's asking how many laps did he do? So I need to divide up this total into the laps. So I have 3 2/3 divided by 3/4. So as I look at this, I can multiply and then add to change my mixed number to an improper fraction. 3 times 3 gives me 9. 9 plus 2 is 11. And then my denominator stays the same as 3. Then I'm dividing by 3/4. Well, here my denominators are not the same. So you can either, to do the denominator method, you can make them the same by multiplying and finding common denominators, or we can just use the other method. I'm going to do that. So we have 11 thirds times the reciprocal, so I flip this, 4 thirds. So this is, I can't simplify, so I do 11 times 4 is 44. 3 times 3 is 9, which is equal to 9 goes into 44 4 times, that's 36. 44 minus 36 is a remainder of 8/9. So that means that I've gone 4 laps plus almost a whole nother lap, 8/9. Number 5, which fractions do not have the sum of 1? A, I've got half. I like to think this is money. That's 50 cents. A quarter, that's 25 cents. A quarter, that's 25 cents. Half plus a quarter gives $1. So this works. It makes 1. Next one, 1/6, 1/3, 1/2. So I've got 6. I have 3 6, and I have 2 4 6. So my denominator should be 4. So for the 3's, I do times 2, and that gives me 1/6 plus 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And then the halves, I do times 3, and that gives me 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. So I get 6, 6. So this works as well. And so this one works, which tells me that the only one left is C. Number 6, Wad found 3/4 of a dozen of seashells. Nigel found 5/6 of a dozen seashells. How many total seashells did they find? Well, I know a dozen is out of 12. So let's change the denominator to 12. I've got 3/4. If I do 4, 8, 12, that's times 3. So I do times 3 times 3. So this tells me that I have 9 seashells out of the dozen, which was 12. But we don't really care about the dozen because the question just asked for seashells. Then Nigel found 5 6. Well, I go 6, 12. So I got to do times 2. Times 2 times 2. And this gives me 10 out of 12. But again, it's 10 seashells out of the dozen. We don't care about that because we're asked for seashells. So I've got 9 seashells plus 10 seashells is equal to 19 seashells. If you also could have ended up with 19 out of 12 if you did it as a fraction, but again, you don't need the 12 because it says it doesn't. But this would have been correct. Question 7. Grandma's sweet potato recipe calls for 3 1/4 pounds of potatoes and 1/3 pound of sugar. How many pounds of sugar and potatoes are needed for the recipe? So we've got 3 1/4 pounds and 1/3 pound, and we're all putting in a thing. So we're adding all these things together. So this is going to be 3 1/4 plus 1/3. So if I take 3 1/4, I've got 4, 8, 12. I did this because I need to find common denominator, so I list my multiples. 3, 6, 9, 12. 12 and 12. So the 4s I do times 1, 2, 3. Times 3. The 3s I do times 1, 2, 3, 4. Times 4. Times 4. So I have 3 and 3. 3 times 4 is 12. Plus 1 times 4 is 4 twelfths. That gives me 3 wholes, and 3 plus 4 is 7 twelfths needed for this recipe. And that would be pounds. Question 8. What is 1 3/4 plus 1/6 plus 2 2/3? Okay, the first thing I need to do, we got to find denominator. So I have 4, 8, 6, 4, 8, 12. My bad. And then I have 6, 12. And I have 3, 6, 9, 12. So my denominator is 12. So it says 1 3/4. So I've got 1 3/4 plus 1/6 plus 2 2/3. So my fourths, I'm going to do times 1, 2, 3. So this is times 3. Times 3. My sixth, I'm going to do times 2. So this is times 2. Times 2. My thirds, I'm going to do times 1, 2, 3, 4. Times 4. Times 4. Now it shows me 1. The whole stays the same. 4 times 3 is 12. That's the denominator I want. 3 times 3 is 9. 6 times 2 is 12. That's the denominator I want. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 4 is 12, which is the denominator I want. I keep my whole. And then 2 times 4 is 8. So then I add these together. 1 plus none plus 2 is 3. 9 plus 2 is 11. Plus 8 is 19 twelfths. Well, this is a improper fraction, so I need to pull my whole out. So this is 3, and then this turns into 1, and there's a remainder of 7 twelfths. So that gives me 4 and 7 twelfths. Next one, what's the sum of 3 2/3 plus a fourth plus a third? Again, we've already done this and found that it's 12, my denominator. So I've got 3 2/3. And this, the thirds did 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is times 4, times 4. And then I have plus 1/4. Well, the fourths we do times 3, 1, 2, 3, times 3, times 3, plus 1 1/3. The thirds we did times 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is times 4, times 4. So we have 3, keep my whole, and 2 times 4 is 8 twelfths. Plus 1 times 3 is 3 twelfths. Plus 1 times 4 is 1 and 4 twelfths. So now I have 3 plus 1 is 4. And then 8 plus 3 gives me 11. 11 plus 4 is 15 twelfths, which is equal to 5 and 3 twelfths, which is equal to 5 and 1/4, if I simplify. Next one, Michael Phelps swam 4 2/3 miles around the pool. If one lap is 1/3 of a mile, how many laps did Phelps swim? So this is his total, and then this is one lap. So we got to divide it by the laps to figure out how many he did. So I have 4 2/3 divided by 1/3. And I see its common denominators already, so that'll help me out. Let's change this, the mixed number into an improper fraction. 3 times 4 plus 2. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 plus 2 is 14 thirds. Divided by 1/3. And this is just going to be 14 because we have the common denominators. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 14 divided by 1 gives me 14. So this is going to be 14 laps. If you decide to use the multiply the reciprocal way, that would be 14 thirds times the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3 over 1. These are the same, so they can cancel out. I divide by 3. I divide by 3. And I get 1. I get 1. 14 times 1 is 14. That's my solution. Last couple. Russell's dog bowl holds 1 1/3 cups of food. He bought a bag of dog food containing 7 1/4 cups. How many times can he fill up the dog bowl? Completely fill up the dog bowl. So I've got, again, he's got the bowl, which is 1 1/3, and then this bag, which is 7 1/4. So we're taking the bag and we're dividing it into the cups, the bowl. So that's going to be 7 1/4 divided by 1 1/3. First step, I got to change this to a mixed number, to an improper fraction. So I do times plus 1. 4 times 7 is 28. 28 plus 1 is 29/4. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. Divided by 4 over 3. Then they're not common denominators. So what I'm going to do is going to do 29/4 times 3/4. Is going to be a little bit hard. I know that 29 times 3, well, what I like to do is I like to round up to 30 and then subtract one of my 3's, right? Because this is 3 29 times. But if I do 3 30 times, I can subtract a 3 and it'll give me 29. So 30 times 3 is 90. Minus 3 is equal to 87. So 29 times 3 is 87. And then 4 times 4 is 16. And so however many times 16 goes into 87, that's going to be your answer. Next one, turn these into mixed numbers. 2 2/3. 3 times 2. Well, I'll do it, right? So we've got 3/3 plus 3/3 plus 2/3. Again, 3/3 plus 3/3 plus 2/3 gives me 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8/3. So you don't have to do this. You could just multiply 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. And you'll get it, but this is 8/3. Then I've got over here 3/5. Well, that one's fine. So we're just good. So, oh no, it's 4 3/5. My bad. So that would be 4 3/5. So I do 5 times 4 is 20. Plus 3 is 23/5. Here I do 3 1/3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10/3. Here I have 1 3. I think that's 8. 3/8. So that's 8 times 1 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11/3. Next one, turn these into mixed numbers. So that means we're dividing. How many times 4 go into 12? It goes in 3 times. So that's my answer, 3 wholes. How many times 5 go into 19? 5, 10, 15. So that's 3 times. And then let's count up. 16, 17, 18, 19. So that's a remainder of 4 out of 5. How many times 7 go into 23? 7, 14, 14, 21. If we do more, it'll go over. So that's 28. So that's too far. So this is 3, and I'm at 21, so I have a remainder of 2. 2 sevens. How many times 3 go into 17? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. So this is too far. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm at 15, and I have 2 more out of 3. Question 14, Jessica collected 8 2/3 pounds of coins. She wants to put them into smaller containers. Each container can hold 3/4 of a pound. How many small containers can she fill to the top? So again, I'm taking the coins and I'm dividing them into containers. So I have 8 2/3 divided by 3/4. In this case, I'm going to convert my mixed number into an improper fraction. So I'm going to take 3 times 8 plus 2. 3 times 8 is going to be 24. 24 plus 2 is 26 out of 3 divided by 3/4. So that's going to be 26 out of 3. And I'm going to use, since our denominators are not the same, I'm going to use the multiply by the reciprocal method. So that's 4/3 because we flip the fraction. If we change the sign, we flip the fraction with multiplication and division. 26/3, so 26 times 4. Well, I know 25 times 4 is going to be 100, and then I have one extra 4 that I have to add in, so that's going to be 104. 3 times 3 is 9. So that's going to be my answer there. And that's it. If you wanted to do this, you could go 9 goes into 104. I know it goes into 90 10 times. And then if I do another one, I get 99. So 11 would be 99. And then that'd be 100, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that would be 5 ninths. 11 and 5 ninths would be the simplified or the mixed number.